For a while in my life, the sound of ticking grew stronger and faster every day. At first, an echo from a familiar voice, and I tried to deny it at first. Maybe I had a song stuck in my head, or maybe I was being haunted by a ghost. But as the days grew by, the sound grew stronger and faster every moment. It followed me everywhere I went, played after everything I said, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get the noise to stop. Then, one day, I found myself sobbing on the floor, and the sound of ticking had stopped. It was this moment where I realized that I was a ticking bomb, a noise, keeping all my needs and emotions shut in until I exploded. Let's pause here for a minute and think about what went wrong. How did I end up here? You see, everything went downhill when I became a toxic people pleaser and formed codependent relationships with my peers. Hi everyone, my name is Elsa, and I'm currently a freshman here at the American International School of Vietnam. For many years, I've seen my friends, family, peers, and so many people online root their worth in others and end up sabotaging their self-love. There is a danger behind the disease to please, as it can affect your mental and physical well-being. More specifically, constantly rooting your worth in others and seeking validation from them can lead to codependent relationships. But before I dive into how codependency can negatively affect you, let's take a step back and define the word people-pleasing. People-pleasing is when you try to satisfy a person or a group of people in order to receive validation from them. Now, anyone can exhibit people-pleasing traits, and it's natural. As humans, it is a need to receive validation from others. According to Sharon Martin, a licensed psychotherapist and the author for the Better Boundaries workbook, our need to belong was probably written in our DNA millions of years ago. Martin explains that people had to join tribes in order to hunt for food together and survive. Therefore, being unaccepted meant that you had a low chance of survival. That's why your need to be liked is as deeply rooted as your needs for water and food. Isn't that fascinating? This has stayed the same over the course of human evolution, and we continue to be a social species who want to be accepted for who we are. Therefore, we all try to people please to receive the validation that we all require. Think about it for a minute. Everybody here has people pleased at least once every day, whether it is over apologizing or agreeing to something you actually disagree with. But what if you people pleased too much? When you're a chronic people pleaser, meaning that you try to excessively people please to receive the validation that we all require, this can lead to codependent relationships. This is where people pleasing becomes toxic and starts to negatively impact the giver and the people around them. Now you might be wondering to yourselves, how does someone even end up here in the first place? You see, many people become so desperate to be liked, so desperate to be validated for who they are, that they eventually become chronic people pleasers and form codependent relationships. This is exactly what I did 2 years ago. There was a time where I felt so lonely, so sick of myself, so tired of living in this body, that I decided to take my self-worth and root it in others. I sought validation from others as I felt incapable of loving myself. It was okay, right? All I needed to do was say yes to everything and listen to this aching ticking noise in order for me to be liked, in order for me to finally feel okay about myself. But as the ticking noise grew stronger and faster every moment, I soon realized that being in a codependent relationship only damaged me more. And it can damage you too. A few years ago, I had suffered from severe low self-esteem issues due to constantly being bullied by my classmates. You see, it is only natural for humans to want to be accepted for who we are. Therefore, when we're rejected by groups of people for a long period of time, it may cause trauma. Then, in order to cope with the trauma, a person may start fawning. Fawning is a trauma response where a person tries to avoid or please the abuser in order to deal with the situation. Now, this is exactly what I did. I felt terrible about myself and was so desperate to be liked that I eventually became a chronic people pleaser in order to cope with my fear of rejection. Hence, I thought to myself, if I can't find a way to validate myself, if I can't find a way to love myself, then I'll just try to seek approval from other people. So I started measuring my worth based on how much validation I got from them. At first, it did work. Going out of my way to please people made them happy, and I felt great about myself in return. However, it quickly became toxic, and they took advantage of my behavior. Eventually, my peers had used me for my grades and so much more, and I had let this all happen just because I was so blinded by receiving validation from them. Then, over the next few months, I saw how codependency negatively impacted my mental and physical well-being, as well as my self-love. Being a toxic people pleaser caused me to drop all my boundaries and damage my mental health. I had kept quiet while my peers used me for my work, grades, and so much more, all for me to feel loved. This continued for months, and everything was ticking until I exploded. I was angry, sad, miserable, distraught, and most importantly, felt terrible about myself, all while watching how codependency slowly but surely killed me, as it did with so many others. Primarily, being codependent prevented me from taking care of myself and damaged my mental health. According to Southern New Hampshire University, scientific studies suggest a lack of self-care may lead to negative behaviors, such as depression. This can cause you to struggle in loving yourself, which is why toxic people-pleasing can sabotage your self-love. In addition, being codependent damaged my physical health. Toxic people-pleasing can lead to increased stress levels, resulting in a weakened immune system. A report from the National Center for Biotechnology Information shows that students exhibiting a constant high level of stress took on average 3 days longer to heal a wound, as opposed to the ones with low levels of stress. Since codependency can cause you to constantly feel stressed out, it can lead to a weakened immune system. Hence, toxic people-pleasing damaged my physical health, which ultimately impacted my mental well-being, the way I treated myself, and my self-love. Lastly, I could not love myself due to my lack of boundaries. I had let myself get stepped over so many times, all for me to feel loved. I failed at making boundaries to protect myself, which costed my mental health and self-love. Research demonstrates that toxic people-pleasing can lead to increased stress levels and damage your mental health. Having a lack of boundaries can lead to increased levels of stress and apathy. This can cause you to struggle in loving yourself and prevent you from taking care of yourself, which is why toxic people-pleasing can destroy your self-love. Not only so, having a lack of boundaries negatively impacted my academic performance. Studies have shown that students with poor mental health tend to struggle with concentrating on their work and are often less prepared. This can cause them to underperform in school, which is why toxic people-pleasing can impact your self-love, mental well-being, and other aspects of your life as well, such as your work or academic performance. Always being hungry for validation had wrecked me, and it felt completely hopeless. I felt as though I was going to be stuck in this toxic cycle forever and that I would never be able to change. As I previously mentioned, it is completely natural for people to exhibit people-pleasing traits, as everyone wants to be accepted for who they are. However, constantly seeking for validation from others becomes dangerous, and there are ways you can prevent this behavior. Here are a few things I did to overcome my people-pleasing mindset. The first step I took was pausing. People pleasers often commit too quickly without thinking, causing them to feel stressed out afterwards. Therefore, taking a step back and pausing allowed me to think about my availability and prevented me from burning myself out. For instance, I would take a pause and think about my schedule every time someone asked me to help them with work after school. This allowed me to set firm boundaries as I was able to consider my needs, which improved my mental health. Another solution I took was keeping my nose short. People tend to think of no as a basic word, but it holds so much power, especially for people pleasers. Realizing that you do not owe the other person an explanation and keeping your response short will allow you to clearly reply and set clear boundaries. For example, if you find yourself in a situation where someone is asking to hang out with you, but your schedule is already full, you could decline them by saying something like, "No thanks, I have a lot to do at the moment." See how I didn't over-explain myself or say sorry? There is nothing wrong with declining someone, and keeping it short can make your response even clearer. Lastly, one of the best solutions out there is opening up to a trusted person. Talking about your bottled up emotions will allow you to release any resentment or stress that you have been holding onto for too long. Emotional expression is also a form of self-care, which is why it can help you look after yourself. At the end of the day, toxic people-pleasing will never allow you to truly love yourself and make you realize your self-value. Constantly seeking validation from others and rooting in them leads to codependent, unhealthy relationships. There is a danger behind the disease to please, and it's important to recognize your behavior in order to start healing. So the next time you feel your stomach wobble or hear a faint ticking noise, make sure to check in with yourself or someone you trust. Learn how to say a good firm no, practice setting some clear boundaries, and set some time for yourself before you end up exploding like a bomb. Thank you so much for listening.